By the time I became a teenager, I didn't stop trying because I felt strong. I stopped because I was exhausted. I stayed out of the house as much as possible, clubs, volunteering, anything that gave me an excuse. My parents barely noticed. In high school, I got really good at pretending. I could sit at dinner, smile, talk, and still keep everything inside locked away. At night, I'd lie in bed with music in my ears, imagining a life where I didn't feel like I had to justify my existence. My sister, of course, thrived. She had friends, attention, success, everything. My mother loved being her mother. If anyone asked about me, the answer was always brief. Oh, she's more quiet. And then the conversation would move right back to my sister. There was one teacher, my art teacher, who actually saw me. She treated my work like it mattered. She told me I had a voice. I didn't fully understand it, but I knew I felt visible there. She pushed me to apply for programs, scholarships, opportunities to leave. At home, none of that mattered. When I told my parents I got accepted into a small summer program, my father's first question was, "How much does it cost?" That was it. A few minutes later, my sister walked in talking about something she achieved, and suddenly, it was a celebration. I sat there quietly, realizing something painful. You can exist in a room and still be invisible. So I started planning my exit. I saved money secretly. Small jobs, babysitting, anything I could manage. It wasn't dramatic. It was survival. At 18, I didn't argue or make a scene. I packed my things, got into my car, and left for college. My mother hugged me and said, "Make good choices." My father gave me a polite pat on the shoulder. My sister barely looked up. And just like that, I was gone. For the first time in my life, the air actually felt like it belonged to me. I just stared at her. She kept talking like she was explaining a minor inconvenience, not uninviting her own sister from her wedding. She said it would confuse people. She said guests might ask questions about why I didn't look like my parents. She said she didn't want awkward conversations. And then she said it. "I just want real family only." That sentence hit harder than anything else. Real family only. I felt heat rise up my neck, while my hands went ice cold. Part of me wanted to flip the table. The other part just wanted to disappear. That's the thing about old wounds. They don't just hurt, they pull you back in time. I asked her, "Are you serious?" She shrugged. Like I was the problem. Like I was being dramatic. "Don't take it personal," she said. "Don't take it personal." Like she wasn't telling me I didn't belong. I asked if our parents knew. She said yes, and that they agreed. That's when something inside me shifted. Because this wasn't just her anymore. This was all of them. I left without finishing my drink. Sat in my car, shaking. Not the cute kind of shaking. The kind where your body feels like it's trying to break out of itself. When I got home, my fiancé took one look at me and knew something was wrong. I told him everything. Messy. Fast. Barely breathing between sentences. I expected him to calm me down. Instead, he got angry. The kind of angry that comes from clarity. He looked at me and said, "They used you." And hearing that out loud broke something in me. Because deep down, I already knew it was true. That night, I opened my laptop. Not like a scared kid. Like someone who finally understood her power. My name was on the contracts. My card paid the deposits. If I wasn't family enough to attend, I definitely wasn't their ATM. So I started canceling everything. Not dramatically. Not out of revenge. Just quietly with shaking hands and a pit in my stomach. Venue. Caterer. Decorator. Photographer. One by one. Some money was lost. Some deposits were gone forever. But I didn't care. Because for the first time, I wasn't paying for my own humiliation anymore. The calls started the next day. My mom panicking. My sister screaming. My dad texting like I was still a child. "Call your mother." I didn't answer. For once, I chose silence. When I finally picked up, my mom said, "How could you do this to your sister?" I replied, "How could you take my money and then uninvite me?" Silence. Then denial. Then blame. Then guilt. And finally, she reminded me I was adopted. Like love was a favor. like I owed them for existing. That's when it became clear. I was never their daughter. I was their convenience. So I stopped. Stopped explaining. Stopped begging. Stopped trying to earn something that was never mine to begin with. And when my sister tried to destroy my relationship with lies, that's when I made a choice. Not emotional. Not impulsive. Just final. I sent one photo. One truth. To the one person who deserved to see it. After that, everything burned. Her marriage. Their image. Their control over me. They called me cruel. Selfish. Ungrateful. Cold. But for the first time in my life, I wasn't any of those things. I was just done. I cut them off. Blocked numbers. Ignored guilt. Chose peace. And yeah, it hurt. Not because I missed them, but because I finally accepted I never really had them. And then, I built my own life. A quiet one. A real one. With people who didn't need me to prove I belonged. On my wedding day, I stood there, surrounded by love that didn't feel conditional. No pretending. No performing. Just peace. And when my mother showed up outside, crying, begging, playing the victim, I looked at her and said, "You made your choice." Because family isn't about blood. It's about who stands with you. On my wedding day, she said it like I was crossing a line. I looked at her and said, "Yes, especially on my wedding day." Because that day belonged to me. And I wasn't going to let her take it. My friend stood nearby, arms crossed, ready to step in if needed. My mother looked at her like she was the villain. Then she did what she always does when she loses control. She got angry. "You're selfish. You'll regret this. You think you're better than us. You'll be sorry when you need family." And before I could stop myself, I said, "I needed family when I was a kid." For a second, she froze. And for that 1 second, I thought, maybe she finally heard me. Maybe it landed. Then she scoffed. "You were always dramatic." And just like that, I had my answer. I called the police. She left before they arrived, still muttering about how ungrateful I was. I went back inside, fixed my makeup, and walked down the aisle. I got married. I smiled. I cried. I danced. I tried to stay present. But later that night, when everything was quiet, I sat on the edge of the bed and felt it. Not relief, not anger, just sadness. Not because I missed her, but because I finally accepted the truth. She was never going to be the mother I needed. That version of her only existed in my imagination. My husband sat beside me and said, "We did the right thing." And I nodded, because we did. But sometimes, the right thing still hurts. Over the next year, life got quieter. The restraining order held. My sister stayed away. My parents kept their distance. I built routines. I went to therapy. I learned how to say no without apologizing. I learned how to rest without guilt. I learned how to stop waiting for a call that was never coming. And then something strange happened. Their life started falling apart. My sister moved back in. And suddenly, the chaos I had lived with my whole life was theirs. She demanded money. She screamed. She blamed everyone. She created the same storm they had always ignored. And for the first time, they had to live in it. I heard about it through relatives. And honestly, it wasn't satisfying. It was just sad. Because it didn't fix anything. It didn't undo the past. It just proved something I already knew. I was never the problem. One day, my father called. New number. Same pattern. I didn't answer. He left a voicemail. Soft voice. Small. "We miss you." I listened to it twice. Then I deleted it. Not out of anger. Out of self-respect. Because missing me doesn't mean changing. About a year later, I went to a cousin's birthday. I almost didn't go, but I had an exit plan. That made all the difference. Everything felt normal. Until someone cornered me and said, "Your mother is devastated." No hello. No how are you. Just guilt. I said, "I'm not discussing it." They pushed. "But she's your mother." I said, "Yes." And left it there. Then they tried one last time. "You'll regret it when she's gone." I paused, then said, "I already regretted it while she was here." And I walked away. That night I cried, not because they were right, but because I was tired of being the only one willing to tell the truth. A few days later, I mailed back old childhood photos. Not because I didn't want them, but because I refused to be part of her version of the story. I kept one, a picture of me as a kid, smiling, trying. That one was mine. Life didn't magically become perfect. People still tried, still judged, still whispered. But every time, I got stronger, faster at protecting myself, less afraid of being seen as mean. Because if being nice means accepting abuse, then I don't want to be nice. I want to be free, and I am. Now, when people ask about my family, I say, it's complicated, because it is. I have a husband who feels like home, friends who show up, a life that doesn't require me to prove I belong. And somewhere out there, they're still telling their version of the story, where I'm the villain. And honestly, that's okay. The last time I saw my sister was in a courthouse hallway. We walked past each other like strangers. She looked at me with hate, and I felt nothing. That scared me at first, until my therapist said, "Indifference means you're free." And she was right. I still have moments, small ones, when I see a happy family and feel that quiet ache. Not jealousy, just grief, for something I never had. But now, I let myself feel it, without shame, because hope wasn't my weakness. I just gave it to the wrong people. Now I'm building something better. Maybe one day I'll have kids, and they won't have to earn love. They'll just have it. This story doesn't end with apologies, or redemption, or perfect closure. It ends with something quieter, something stronger. Peace. A home where I don't feel like a guest. A life that feels like mine. And the best decision I ever made wasn't canceling a wedding, wasn't exposing a lie. It was this. I didn't go back.